And I want to tell you a little bit more as well about something that's happening over the last handful of weeks. We've been talking about this series called The Art of Navigating. And a bunch of you have been talking to me about this and how it's impacting you and kind of God's working through it. So that is super fun. It's been impacting me as well. And we're going to be talking about kind of the next installment of this today. And here's been kind of our premise. I'll walk you back through it, especially if you're just jumping in with us. What we've been saying is this. We said that we really don't get to have a lot of say in the origin of our story, right? We don't get to pick where we're born or who we're born to, the family that we get born into. We don't get to pick the time frame that we enter life or the geography, none of that, right? But very quickly after, we get to begin to pick and make decisions. And we said, because kind of the nature of how time works, as we start to make decisions, that forms a path for us. And we start to navigate that path. And there's a bit of an art form to it. And while we don't always realize that this path is being formed, we start to recognize, man, this is leading me somewhere. And the question is, where is this thing going, right? Where is it leading me? Where am I headed? And what what are the ramifications of the decisions that I'm making? And so what we've been saying over the last bunch of weeks, and if you've missed those messages, I'd encourage you to catch up online. If you want to, you can do that on our YouTube channel, catch all those messages, kind of take the whole series in for free there. What we've been saying is that there's a massive decision point where we have the freedom to look at a point in time and say, hey, wait a minute, Jesus has done something for me. He came to the planet, he lived a perfect life, an innocent life. He died on the cross willingly to pay for my sin, and he now offers me life. And we said, if I look and say, I want to follow Jesus, I want to look at what he did for me and accept his forgiveness of my sin, then what we said is that opens up for us a whole path, and this is the path of life. And we've been talking about, what is this life look like? What does abundant life look like? And we said that abundant life, eternal life, begins the moment I say yes to Jesus. As soon as I'm kind of rescued from this path that leads to death, this is kind of the other big route that this breaks down into. And we said, when I'm saved from this or rescued from this path, now I'm invited into this way. And we said this way is powerful. There is peace, there's joy, there's purpose. And we said, and there's also obstacles along the way. We're going to run into things like, and this is what we've been talking about, run into things like forks in the road, right? Where I've got decisions to make. What do I do when I bump into those? We talked that through. We looked at the reality of drift, when I begin to kind of fall away or drift out of things that are healthy and good for me. In the last few weeks, we've been talking about loops. Like, what do I do when I get stuck in a cycle or a cycle of behavior that is negative or harmful to me? Like, what do I do with all that, right? And so we've been processing through all that. What I want to do today is I want to add a bit of a different dimension to this that we have hinted at a handful of times in this series, and really take a good hard look at it, because it's an essential item. It's an essential item to navigating the path. And here's just this idea, right? That while I'm going to bump into some of those forks and drift and loops, if I do this with a team, right? If I look and say, hey, man, there's some people that I could walk this through with, that I don't have to do this all by myself. I can walk with a few people that'll walk kind of beside me and a few people that walk ahead of me. That can have a game-changing impact on how I navigate, right? And so we wanted to talk about this and say, hey, what does it look like to build a wisdom team, right? We talked about this briefly in some of the other conversations, but we want to really look at this, and I want to get super practical with it, because what I've found in my own experience is when I look back at some of the most important decisions that I value today, the decision to follow Jesus, the decision to be with my wife, the decision to go into ministry, all those decisions were influenced by people that were around me, that looked at me and that they encouraged me to move in a direction. It was my best friend at the time, right, was kind of in my imperfect version of a wisdom team at that point, He was somebody I trusted and who I loved, and I knew he loved me. He looked at me and he told me the gospel. He told me about Jesus, and it was that decision that would change everything for me. It would be a deep and good friendship when I was thinking about asking my wife out, right? And I was chickening out. And he looked at me and he's like, don't be lame, right? Move forward. Go ask. Don't be a wimp. Go ask her out, man. And he gave me the courage to move on that, right? When I was looking at moving into ministry, I ran that by people I respected, and they looked and said, no, we affirm that decision. This is what we believe you're called to do. And that changed my trajectory. Here's the question. What does it look like to build a wisdom team? Because here's the thing, right? We're just going to be really honest about this. Most of us don't have this. Most of us don't have a person or two or a kind of a well-developed team of people that when we are off track or we're staring at a decision, we could go run that by a group of people and know, man, I've got great perspective on this decision, and I can make it with confidence and with safety. What I believe the Lord wants for us and longs for us is to have that, right? It's a big, big deal. And we want to just start in a place to say, how do we start from scratch? If you're here today and you're like, Ryan, I have absolutely no semblance of this today. I don't even know where to start. We're going to talk directly to that. Or you might be in a place where you say, I've got some of those pieces. I have some people around me that I might be able to lean into, but I've never actually activated the wisdom team. We're going to talk to that as well, right? And we're going to see, I believe, that this has a game-changing impact on how we navigate because of all of the ways that these people can influence and protect and affirm kind of what God is calling us to and what he's doing in our lives. Here, the scripture talks a ton about this. Here's a few verses that jumped out to me. Proverbs 15:22, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. Plans fail for lack of counsel. So all of us do this. We all have stuff we want to do. It's in our head. It's in our mind. I want to do this. I want to ask that girl out. I want to pursue this major. I'm going to take this job. I'm going to move. We're going to take action. We're going to do something. And it seems right? It seems like the right thing to do. But the reality is the value, when I'm looking at my next step, the value of having somebody else stare at that decision from a different angle and look at it with me, I am now far more likely to win and have a great decision made if I have not just my wisdom, but the wisdom of a few other people that look at that decision with me. That's what makes it work, right? And here's kind of the big illusion. I think sometimes we think about smart people. We think about people that lead big organizations or have a lot of responsibility, and we assume that those people know a lot of stuff. They just are kind of all-knowing, and they're just, because they're so brilliant that they have all the answers. Let me just tell you the secret. Nobody operates that way, right? Nobody who is actually in charge of stuff and actually has responsibility lives that way. What smart people do is this. They ask other smart people to feed in, that they trust, just to feed in and give me your perspective, and they gain as much wisdom as they can possibly get so they can make great decisions. Right? This is what the Proverbs are saying. They're saying, hey, you probably aren't going to win all by yourself, but if you get a team around you, you're going to be in a great spot, right? Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. Here's another one. Oh, man, packed proverb here. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Here's the idea. The writer of Proverbs is going to say, hey, the person in your life that's always cool with what you're doing, oh yeah, man, do whatever makes you happy, whatever you want to do, right? I just want you to feel good. Their flattery, that's what an enemy does. That's what an enemy does. Here's what a friend does. A friend looks at you and says, I care about you. And if you think going to go jump off that cliff makes you happy, I'm going to wound you by helping you know that's a terrible idea. Right? See, here's the illusion in our culture is we think that loving is letting you do whatever you think you should do and clapping for it. Guys, that's not love. That's more like hate. When I look at my friend, my brother, and if my brother is going to go make a terrible decision, and I know it's terrible, and I look at him and I say, man, whatever makes you feel good, bud, as I watch him just take his life and plunge it into the depths of ruin, how much do I have to hate that guy to do that? What a friend would do is say, not throw him under the bus in front of other people, not be reckless with him, but look and say, hey man, have you really thought about this? I'm gonna get in between you and this terrible decision you're about to make, and I'm gonna get in the middle of it, even if I have to say something that is fairly uncomfortable to you, I'm gonna do it. The wounds of a friend can be trusted. Guys, it's massive. And it's very different than what would be normal today, right? In our day, it feels like that's a hate thing, that you don't love what I'm doing, so you must be against me. What I want to do is I want to find some people right, when I'm looking at real friendship, find some people that love me enough to say, I'm going to tell you the truth. And I'm going to do that in a loving and kind and respectful way. But I'm going to say things to you even if they hurt a little bit. I'm going to do it, right? Because I care for you, I love you, and I want what's best for you. In the big picture, in the long run, right? Not just in the moment for you to feel good. I actually had somebody do this this week with me. It was a friend I hadn't talked to in a long time. And he reached out, and frankly, he was actually upset with me. And he wanted to have a conversation, and I knew he was upset. And we sat down, and he began talking to me. And at first, what he was saying was hurtful to me, right? And this is just the nature of, right? If you're ever mad at me, here's what you can kind of expect. If you hit me out of nowhere, and you're upset with me, and you start telling me all these things, there's a good chance the immediate response may not be super pretty, okay? Just saying, but I'll always land in the right spot, okay? So immediately I was a little defensive. I was pushing back. Some of the perspective wasn't quite right. As he kept talking and I kept listening, I landed in this place and I thought, oh my, I needed to hear what he said. I wasn't seeing it. He was right. I needed a friend to come and wound me that I might be able to love people better, including my friend. That's how it works. The people that I've come to appreciate the most are those who are willing to tell me the truth. Again, not in a reckless way, not in a mean way, but have the guts to be for me and give me perspective, even if I don't love it. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, right? It's the enemy that multiplies kisses. Super different. Here's another one. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. The idea here is that, when brothers walk together, sisters walk together in wisdom, they do this for each other. We end up both being better. My friend who sharpened me the other day, we both walked out of that conversation better. I walked out better, wounded, and I had a few things I need to share. He walked out better as well. We sharpen one another, right, as we walk together, right? And this is the key thing, is we are better together than we could ever be on our own. And guys, listen, this is why this is so massive. This is why the church isn't sitting in your living room watching a sermon. You can't do this by just watching some content, watching a communicator say stuff. It's important, it's good, right? Like, thank you for all being here, right? Glad you're here. But the reality is this is a part of the conversation. It's part of what makes sense. This is an environment where we can gather together to build relationships and do this together. If I'm just in my living room alone with no relationships and no people, I'm cut off from the wisdom that comes from this picture. Iron sharpening iron, that's a massive piece of what the church is designed to be, is God literally gifts people to each other. And we bless one another as we persevere and help one another to stay on the path. That's the idea. I love what C.S. Lewis says about this whole subject. Here's what he said. So the next best thing to being wise oneself is to live in a circle of those who are. Isn't that great? If you would look and say, man, I don't have any wisdom, just get yourself in the middle of some people that have some, right? Find a way to get some wise people around you, and you will become wise, right? And we kind of recognize that. There's a practical reality to that we hear on, right? You're the 5 people that you spend the most time with. There's some truth to that. We are influenced by the people that we live life with and that we surround ourselves with, right? So here's the question. What do these people look like? If you're sitting here today and you're like, Ryan, I'm starting from ground zero, man, just pretend that I have none of this. What do I do? Well, first, let me describe what these people are like. First of all, these people are not perfect. You will not find perfect people, okay? Here's what they kind of look like, though. These are people that share this vision. They have a passion for Christ, okay? So they know Jesus. They have a relationship with Jesus. They're committed to the same direction that you're headed in. Big deal. Here's a big one. They have humility. They have humility. If these people think that they've arrived, you don't want them on your team. Does that make sense? We are not a group of people that have arrived anywhere. We're on a journey. I'm gonna become like Jesus, and until I see him face to face, then he's gonna finish the work he started in me. Right? We can progress and we can grow and we can move, but we are not finished until we see him face to face. These are people who are hungry and who are growing, have humility, and I think another massive piece we're looking for is they have joy. Right? They have the fruit of God working in their lives. Doesn't mean they're happy all the time, but it means that there's joy. And when you look at all this, very simply, there's a trust that you can have for them. When you look at their life, there's a general, especially when you're looking at these people here who I'm going to say are, quote unquote, ahead spiritually, right? There's no arrival, but there is such a thing as ahead. There's people who've lived longer, who've had more experiences. Right? There's people who have 30-year marriages and people who've gone through really hard things and come out the other side and still believe in Jesus. I want to walk with some people who are ahead, and then I want to walk with some people who are going to walk beside me. Right? So 1 or 2 people who are ahead and 1 or 2 people who are beside. We don't need 1,000 of these people. You don't need 100. You just need a few. And when I'm looking for these people, they look something like this. Right? They got a passion for Jesus. They have a humility. They got a joy about them, and they're people that I can trust. When I'm looking for these folks, the people who are kind of quote unquote ahead, in general, they should be making the kinds of decisions that you hope to make someday. Their life looks more like what you want your life to look like. Not just their words. They're not just people that sound right. Their life looks more and more like the kind of life Jesus describes. Now, if we're going to say, what's the very first step? If I'm going to try to find these people, how do I find them? Here's where I want you to start. Here's where I want to start. And I continue to do this. And by the way, people can come in and out of this circle over time. That's okay. There's different seasons for it. Here's the number one, the most important thing you can do as you're beginning to build this is this. Are you ready? Super important. Right? You're going to pray. You're going to start right there. You're going to start right there. You're like, Ryan, that's it? You want me to pray? You mean, like, God's going to just, like, manifest people right in front of me? How does this thing work? Right? Here's the idea. What we believe is we believe that God is far smarter than we are, far more powerful, and that he has the ability to move people into my life in a way that is far beyond my ability to move people into my life. You ever have somebody come into your life and you're like, man, God put that person in front of me. How did this happen? God was moved in a way that was beyond anything we could describe. So what we want to do is we want to say, God, will you do this for me? Will you bring a friend, a brother, or sister that will walk with me and be iron with me? Will you bring a leader into my life, a mentor into my life who's ahead of me? And will you build this team for me? He has the ability, right? The Bible is loaded with passages we could look at all day where God's, right, ask, seek, knock, right? He wants to give you this far more than you want to go find this. You can have absolute assurance that this is squarely within the will of God, that God wants you to have wisdom. Right? When I begin to look at this and say, God, will you build this wisdom team for me? Then I want to go forward and act as if this prayer is going to be answered. Okay? I want to act as if this prayer is going to be answered. You're like, Ryan, what do you mean by that? Here's what I want to do. If I believe that God is going to answer this prayer, then I want to begin to walk and interact and move as if he's going to answer that prayer for me. How would I do that? Here's a super practical way you can begin to find if you came in here as your first weekend, you're like, man, Ryan, I want to do that. I don't even know what we're talking about 100%, but I want to do what you're talking about. I want to find some wisdom. What I would love for you to do is this. Very simple. Very simple. Here's what you should do if you're starting from scratch. You should show up here on Sunday on the weekend. Okay? You're like, Ryan, I'm already doing that. I'm here. Here's the next thing you should do. Come here every weekend. Ready? So simple. I want you to meet 3 people. You're like, I'm out. Right? I'm out. Meet 3 humans. There's plenty of them to pick from, right? And here's the thing. I realize this has become very uncomfortable. We're like not as good at this as we used to be, right? I just want you to get your head around it for a minute, right? We're in 2023. 3 years ago, it became kind of wrong to go talk to other people. Better or worse, whatever, I don't really want to have the conversation. It's just a reality that human skills of interacting with other people kind of got altered a little bit. And our level of comfort and skill of approaching, walking across the room and sticking my hand out and meeting somebody, that skill got a little messed up, right, in all of us. And by the way, you introverts, you're not off the hook. I'm an introvert too, right? So I kind of dread the thing I'm telling you to do, but I do it. But it's terrifying, right? All you need is you need 7 seconds of stupid courage. Just be like, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to walk around. Well, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to look at you and be like, you're kind of a freak, and walk away. That's not that bad, right? We've all had that happen. If not, you haven't taken enough risks, right? So just walk across the room and introduce yourself. And now you can blame it on me, right? Which is fantastic. You can go to after the service, you can be like, Ryan said I had to talk to you, right? And now you have a common bond. You're welcome, right? But now meet 3 people, and then as you meet, eventually you're going to find somebody who's low pressure. You're just going to meet some people and get to know them and see if this person kind of makes sense. Hey, you going to the fall bash? Hey, you're going to go serve at the building? Hey, maybe we can go, you want to grab a coffee, right? You're not dating, but this is the idea. This is how you make friends, right? And so we start to build a relationship, a connection, and start to meet people. That's where we got to start, and then kind of take it from there. Next week, Say hi to those people again and see if a friendship or a relationship kind of starts to form that way, right? Just start meeting 3. If you got gaps in the wisdom team, if you have no wisdom team, start here, okay? And then over time, what's going to happen is you're going to start to build enough trust and find some people that look like this, which, by the way, there are plenty of these people. There are lots of them. When you think about looking for people on this team, don't just think of the people that you kind of know, right? There's more than just pastors. There are people here that have been married 30 years. There are people here that have overcome enormous difficulty. There are plenty of people in this room that have a lot of wisdom. It's just unknown to us, right? And so we want to learn each other, get to know each other, and find our way to each other that we might be able to be on each other's wisdom team. Here's, by the way, as well, if you want to invest in other people, don't advertise yourself as a potential wisdom team member. Don't offer advice. Please, just stop. Okay, don't do that, right? Especially if you're somebody that has wisdom to offer, just get to know people. Hear their story. If you're somebody who's been married forever and you're like, man, I want to invest in, or you've been following Jesus a long time, I want to invest in younger people, just be for them what you wish you had when you were their age. Somebody to listen, somebody to hear, right? Says somebody to be present. Don't be an advice giver, okay? Everybody here? You with me? Nobody likes that. Stop it, okay? It's good. Just pray, meet 3. Now, you might say, here's the next piece. You might look and say, okay, Ryan, I have a couple people in my life, like if I got really courageous and I was ready to have a conversation, I think I know who I'd talk to. I might be able to call that person or this person, or worst case, you got to talk to me, right? Whatever, like you could have the conversation. How do you have that conversation when you go to actually bring something in front of somebody who's walking beside you or ahead of you? And here's what I think you're looking for. You're looking for a situation where maybe you're making a decision, maybe you're just wondering about some feedback in your life and you need some perspective, whatever it is. What you're looking for is you're saying, hey, here's my situation. Can I run this by you? And then you want to be able to tell them, kind of show them the picture as honestly as you know how. If there's something that you know, you should lay it on the table. Man, here's kind of what I'm prone to do. Here it is. Here's my weaknesses. Here they are. Can I just get some feedback on this? And and maybe you have an inkling of what you want to do. Here's kind of what I think God's asking me to do in response to this loop, in response to this fork, to react to this drift. Will you give me some feedback on it? What do you think God wants me to do with this? That's your question. You can write it down if you want. Right? What do you think God wants me to do with this? And then let that person respond to that. Now, here's a verse, right? I had to exercise this week. Come back, little verse. Please help from the back. There it is. Okay, I just destroyed it. Here we go. James 1:19. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Again, I had to practice this week. This is the idea. When I'm in a situation where I'm prone to become angry and defensive, again, sometimes I do this, and I do my very best not to, but sometimes it comes out. Got a little more fight in me than flight, okay? So sometimes you get that, right? Slow to anger, quick to listen, right? Slow to speak. Here's what I want to do. I want to take in whatever they're going to ask. Have you thought about this? Have you considered this? How are you going to deal with this situation? Now, I just want to receive it. I want to be quick to listen. I'm going to receive it. Have you considered this other whole perspective? What are you going to do about the kids? Are you sure that major is suited to how God has gifted you? When they say things that challenge our plan, it's going to make me mad. It's going to hit us emotionally, and this is so helpful. What's beautiful is it releases our grip on our plan. It releases our grip on our plan, and it helps us to see it more objectively, that this is how plans succeed. And now I'm multiplying wisdom. I got this guy's wisdom. I got their wisdom. I got this person's wisdom, right? All their wisdom is coming at me, and now I'm like, whoa, this is totally different. I see it now. And I can now make a real decision based on reality, not just my very, very skewed, limited perspective on it. But in order to hear, I can't get super defensive. I can't jump in and start defending myself. I got to be quick to listen, slow to speak, right? Slow to become angry, right? Eventually, I gotta ask for feedback somewhere. I got to ask for feedback. What do you see? What do you think God's trying to do? What do you think God's trying to, here's a great one. What do you think God's trying to teach me right now? What do you think God is doing through this fork in the road? How do you think God wants me to break out of this loop? What do you think about, get the feedback, right? And then do your very best, ask God to help you to receive the wisdom that is inevitably going to come your way. Guys, I think we could talk all day about this. I think about this conversation and what can happen if we just actually did this. Because here's the reality, right? Some of us are going to hear this conversation, and some of us are going to walk out of this room, and you know what we're going to do? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So some of us are going to walk out and do absolutely nothing. Listen, some of us are going to take this and run with it. You know, we're going to fill in the gaps in our wisdom team. We're going to build a wisdom team. It's from scratch. We're going to start to build this thing out, and we're going to seek wisdom and counsel. And listen, the protection that comes into my life when I have this team is enormous. I'm saved from myself and from my own limited way of thinking. Think about it this way. Think about the problem that you're wrestling with right now. Maybe it's a problem in your marriage, or you're trying to decide what you want to major in, or what college you want to go to. Maybe it's a problem, something that's eating your lunch probably. And something that's causing probably anxiety. And probably there's something that makes you feel really alone and maybe misunderstood. Financial, whatever it is, maybe there's a handful of them, right? Things that show up on this path. Think about how different your experience of this problem you're in would be if you had trusted people that you could run that thing by. Think about how much less anxiety you would have if you knew you had a strong corner, like a boxer. You got people in your corner. You got to go fight, but you got people here that are helping you to win in the game. How much less alone would you feel knowing these people exist? You don't have to talk to them every day. You just have to know that they are on the planet and they know you, and with a phone call, they would be for you. It's a game changer. Maybe if this decision that you're in the middle of, or this thing you're in the middle of, if you would have had a wisdom back here, maybe they would have helped you make a completely different decision, and this whole thing could have been deleted. You'd be in a completely different place. What if the marriage thing you're in the middle of, somebody else dealt with that and figured it out 15 years ago, and they're literally just sitting on the answer that you are floundering around trying to find? See how this works? We are a gift to each other, and we are far better together than we could ever be on our own. The problem is I have to trust and be vulnerable and not know all the answers and lay down my pride and let somebody speak into my life. If right now, if we drew the line today and you said there's absolutely nobody in my life that I would listen to if they said, I'm really concerned about where you're headed, I'm really concerned about what you're doing. If there's nobody that you could name that you actually trust to be in a kind of an authority, a loving authority in your life, you're in danger. You're in danger. Because all you can see is what you can see. You're only trusting you. And I've been there. And I'm slowly learning to gain the perspective of other wise people. I'm not trying to build consensus. I'm trying to gain wisdom that I may make the best decisions that God is asking me to make in the place I'm in right here, right now. God does not want his children to live alone. God does not want his children to be isolated. He doesn't desire that we, in isolation, grapple with the things of life on our own without involving help from others. He's looking and saying, I want my children to know each other and love each other and help each other and stand in gaps for each other. Because this is what our communities, our groups are made to do, is help, not be this for you, but help provide a place where you could find this, where you could build this, where you could have access to it. Think about the affirmation that I would receive if I ran decisions by this team. Think about the protection, the security that would come from running this by wise people. In my case, sometimes this has been I needed courage. I needed to show my situation to a group of people who I knew loved and trusted me and said, here's what I'm thinking. This feels terrifying. What do you think? And they were like, go do it. Go run through the wall. And listen, I needed them to tell me that. It felt so scary. I had that experience when I said yes to Jesus for the first time. I had that experience where I said yes to this campus. I needed somebody to help push me over the line, nudge me over the line. And here's the thing. If we stay isolated and disconnected and alone, we will stay small and bound up and anxious and limited to our own perspective and our own problem. When we allow ourselves to enter into this, we can be a blessing to each other, and we become stronger together. And navigating the forks with this team, game changer. Managing the drift with this team, game changer. Breaking out of a loop with this team, completely different experience. Our instinct is to hear, I gotta navigate this thing alone. And God's like, I never told you that. I want you to walk together through it. See, he's a father, man. He loves his kids. And he wants you to have wisdom. He's not trying to have you dodge all the pain. There's going to be plenty of pain. He wants you to have wisdom. And he doesn't want you to be alone. And the joy that comes from walking with these people, gives us strength to continue on. Right? So whether you're starting from scratch or you're just activating this thing that's kind of loose, this is a conversation that has to end with action. This is not a conversation that we walk away and say, that was neat that Ryan said that. Right? Go have a really awkward conversation and blame it on me. That's really what I want you to do. So that in a year or 2 years or 5 years, 20 problems that would have existed all get washed away because you got some wisdom. Right? If you're a young person in embracing a future and a college and a major and direction, be a sponge. Go get wisdom. Do way more of this than you think you should. What are you going to do? Waste some time? It will only help you. It doesn't matter if you're 15 or you're 75. This stuff matters and we need it. I talked to a guy in his 80s on the way out. I said to him, brother, I need to help you get on some people's wisdom teams. And you know what he said to me? He said, I need wisdom. In his 80s. And I looked at him and I said, that's why you need to be on some wisdom teams. Right? Because you have it. You have it to give. Okay. Guys, I'm going to have the band come out and love for us just to land in a place of worship, clear on what action, what step we need to take in order to move forward. Would you pray with me? Lord, I'm just so grateful The way you have built us and designed us and created us is that we are limited, which is hard, but it's also wonderful, Lord, because it puts us in a situation where we need each other. We need to know and relate and trust each other, even though we're going to hurt each other and fail at times. God, I pray for everyone in this room, everyone who can hear my voice right now, that you yourself would begin to raise up a team of wisdom around each person, that you would gift each person with people to walk beside, who are full of passion for you and who are marked by humility and have joy to share. God, I pray that you would knit your body together, your church, in such a way that people feel seen and known and that there's no lonely people here among us. God, may that be true. I pray that you would work in such a way that that was possible. Lord, we trust in you. We put our faith in you. And we ask that you would protect and provide, make us people of wisdom a little more today. Meet us here.